So the idea with this shoe is going to be the softest, most sensitive member of the Instinct family. Obviously, by making an Instinct really soft, really sensitive, what most people love about the Instinct family the most is a really precision toe, big toe that you get with these. So by making a slipper super soft, especially with no closure system, it's really hard to make sure that you have a precise toe, because typically with a slipper like this, over time it just gets really soft. It's not very precise at all. So we've done quite a few things to make sure that yes, it's a slipper, there's no closure system, but it's equally precise as the rest of the Instinct family and able to actually earn that name. And we didn't call it something else. Like, we did say Instinct for that reason. So what is unique about this particular model? Well, first things first about being a 100% slipper is, what's the biggest issue with most slippers on the market? Well, there's no closure system, and traditional slippers just have an elastic instep. And as you wear the shoe, you take it out and off over seasons and seasons, that elastic instep can tend to stretch out, maybe not have that same really good precise wrap over the instep security as you had when it was new. So what we use on our elastic are these blue bands that we call reinforced elastic bands. So this is actually a TPU material that's attached directly to the traditional elastic. So what that does is it allows the shoe to stretch, but it will never allow the elastic underneath to completely blow out. So when you put the shoe on, yes, it's going to stretch, so is the elastic, but those reinforced elastic bands will always remain under tension. So the easiest way to describe that is, whether the shoe's brand new or it's 4 or 5, 6 months old, you haven't pretty broken in, it's going to feel the same good, secure closure system directly over the instep as when it was brand new. And that's a really cool technology. One thing also about this new Instinct is you're going to notice that maximum rubber toe coverage, right? Like, the entire top is covered with rubber, but you're going to also notice that there's 2 different pieces of rubber on here. So how are we doing that? So basically, the perforated rubber directly over the entire forefoot is our M50 rubber, which is the stickiest rubber that we use. So when you're toe hooking, or you actually have this thing fit pretty tight with a high angle toe box, your knuckles or toe knuckles are pretty curled in there, this really soft elastic rubber is going to be really comfortable over the top of your foot, even if you have it fitted tight. Even more importantly, when you're actually pulling with your foot towards yourself as opposed to pushing, it's going to give the maximum amount of grip because of all of that rubber toe coverage. One thing before I come back to the front of the shoe is go to the rear. You're going to see this blue heel cup. Sometimes people see colored rubber and they're like, oh, it must be non-marking rubber, non-sticky. We just did this for aesthetics. This blue rubber is the same super sticky M50 rubber that is on the front of the shoe. So when you're toe or heel hooking with this thing, the stickiest rubber that we offer is also on the heel cup to make sure that it's super grippy, not going to slide off of the surface. Obviously, a whole bunch of perforations on the inside and outside, so no matter if you have a narrow heel or a wide heel, it's going to conform and stretch as needed to conform a wider heel, or be really secure right out of the box with a narrow heel. One thing that people have noticed about this is a brand new shoe, Instinct line, and we've mentioned PAF heel in just about every single presentation that we've done, and this does not have the PAF heel. So why would we take one of our newest, most high-performance shoes and not put one of our most toted and a technology that we're most proud of in the newest model? And that's because of the tension system that this particular model uses. So the Instinct S uses what we call a CTS, or a combined tension system. And what we've done is combine 2 different rubbers to make one continuous wrap all the way around the shoe from front to back. I think the easiest way to describe that is, we look at the Drago, we look at the Furias, we look at the Camaras, they have that SRT toe wrap in the front. The combined tension system is essentially an SRT wrap for the entire foot from front to back to heel. So as you're noticing, we mentioned before, the perforated rubber is M50. You'll also notice, if you zoom in, there is a non-perforated rubber that is a different piece. It's not incorporated with that M50. So that system actually starts right here on the inside of the shoe. It wraps underneath where you can't see, and then back over, and the reason for no PAF is back around and back underneath. So traditional slingshot rands work pretty similarly, but the way that this is incorporated directly from the outside, underneath and around, it's a completely different system. So a combined tension system, and basically the way that we do that is This M50 rubber, or why we do that, is this M50 rubber is super soft. So we could have went ahead and just put that all the way around the shoe, but then you don't have that instinct toe, right? That really good precise toe. So this rubber is a higher durometer, so stiffer than the M50 rubber. So we frame it on the inside, so even when you are standing on a really small foothold, which most slippers do a really bad job at because they don't have any structure, that firmer rubber, it ensures that you have really good, precise, and supportive placement on that big toe, while at the same time also acting as an SRT from front to back to really just make sure that your entire foot is cradled and supported with really sticky rubber from front to back. So, you know, supportive, it's sticky, and also super precise, which are things that you definitely can't say about every pure slipper out on the market. Most slippers, pure slippers on the market, it's an old school design that hasn't changed since like the early 90s is what a lot of those came from. The problem with that is a lot of them, they're flat, and they lose a lot of their precision as they stretch out. They don't have a lot of lining, they don't have reinforced elastic bands on the top, so people do like them for crack climbing because they're comfortable, they're really sensitive, especially in desert cracks is really where they shine. We wanted this to be a slipper that you could use for hard bouldering and sport climbing and still have a lot of precision. So would this be our desert crack climbing shoe like some of those other slippers on the market? No, absolutely not. This would be for someone that loves an Instinct VS or VSR, but they just want a softer version of it to use more for bouldering. But when they do get to a problem or a route where it's like, oh man, now I really do need to stand on a small foothold, and if I had a really soft slipper without a lot of technology built into it, it wouldn't feel really precise at all. It'd be too soft to stand on it. That's where the benefit of this combined tension system comes in. So, I mean, it's a slipper, but it's, you know, light years away in terms of technology and performance of any other slipper out on the market. And it is going to retail at $189. And I think that that price is going to surprise a lot of people because it's a slipper, quote unquote. But again, the amount of technology that's built into this and the fact that it is equally as precise as an Instinct, which are at that same price point, that's why we priced it at that. Yeah, it's a slipper, but it's not your average slipper. It is a legit performance climbing shoe. Regular Instinct, men's and women's, which is a full lace-up. So that's definitely a big difference. There's a lace-up closure from top to bottom, so a really good, precise, dialed-in fit. The men's and women's are very similar in that they have a more substantial support system. So they actually have a 2/3 length outsole and a 1/2 length midsole. So compared to the VS's or the slipper, they're definitely going to be better at standing on small holds for a longer period of time because they have more underfoot support. The biggest difference between the men's and women's is going to be the rubber. So the women's comes with grip, the men's comes with edge. So this is going to be a little bit softer. Again, for maybe like a smaller person, they can't quite flex the edge rubber the same way that someone that's a larger person can do so. So we want to make sure that a lighter person is going to have the ability to use this shoe but in a you know, basically a layup that they're going to be able to manipulate just like a larger person would. The other big difference between the men's and women's is going to be the fit, and it's going to be a volume difference, but the volume difference is only in the heel. So the 4-foot width, the 4-foot volume, the fit of the men's and women's is going to be pretty much identical. But when you get to the heel, the volume in the women's heel is reduced quite significantly compared to the men's version. So by having a shallower heel cup, obviously the foot can't go as deep into the upper of the shoe as the men's version. So the whole foot sits up a little bit higher in the upper, so that automatically makes the whole shoe feel like it's lower volume all the way from front to back, when in fact the only place where we reduce the volume is in the heel. So this would be for the person that wants an Instinct, super precise, but they want it a little bit more supportive. Maybe they're doing a little bit more sport climbing, trad climbing, longer routes with it. So they do want that nice precision, but they want the most supportive version of an Instinct that they can actually get in the line. And also, you know, arguably the most dialed in, customized fit with the full laced toe closure system. The next one down would be the Instinct VS series. So the big difference here is that obviously it's a little bit softer. Like we looked on the regular Instinct, it had a 2/3 length outsole and midsole. This is more like a 1/2 length outsole and midsole. So it's going to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more sensitive underfoot than the lace-up version. Other than that, obviously the closure system is different. We're using just one Velcro closure strap on the VS system. So that is also going to naturally give a little bit more flexibility characteristics, so a little bit softer build overall. And then other than that, honestly, this is very similar to the lace-ups we just looked at. The women's version uses excess grip as opposed to excess edge, so a little bit softer, a little bit more grippy. This is going to be a little bit more supportive. And then the women's version has reduced volume in the heel as opposed to the men's, so it makes it feel like it has reduced volume all the way throughout the entire shoe. But it's basically going to be a slightly softer version of the Instinct lace-up. The next one in the line would be the Instinct VSR. And we get a lot of questions about this, like what's the VSR and how is it different than the VSs, which are really popular as well? And honestly, the only difference between the men's VS and the VSR besides the color is going to be the rubber. The VS uses the excess edge, which is the stiffer rubber, and the VSR uses excess grip, that's funnily not correct. That's the excess grip on this thing. So this is basically the softer version of the VS. For the person that really likes this shoe, but they want stickier rubber, a little bit softer, that's where they get the VSR. But otherwise, besides the color in the rubber, it's the exact same shoe. So basically, which is kind of confusing too, because that essentially means that the women's VS is a low volume VSR because they both have the sticky rubber, right? But that's the big difference right there. And then obviously the Instinct S is in a class of its own. There's no closure system besides the reinforced elastic bands that make sure that it doesn't overstretch. Super soft rubber, really flexible, really sensitive, but again with that combined tension system to ensure that you have that laser precision and support of the toe, the big toe that you would expect from any of the Instinct models.